Thanks for joining us this Tuesday, October 17th. I'm Nick Smith in for Nichole Berlie in Chicago. We begin with a showdown for the Speaker's gavel in the U.S. House of Representatives. That continues at this hour. The House is now in recess after the first round of voting just wrapped up. This all comes exactly 2 weeks after Congressman Kevin McCarthy was ousted by his own party, leaving the House and much of Congress in limbo. Here's a look at where things stand right now. Jim Jordan, congressman from Ohio, did not have the votes needed to take the gavel, and all 20 people voted for others. Let's get right to NewsNation Chief Washington correspondent Blake Berman, who has been covering it all. Blake, this is actually exciting and interesting to watch. It's history in the making.
And we sit here, Nick, and look at the House floor right now, and it tells a story of sort of where things are. There was just a very consequential vote, as big as they get, really, in the House of Representatives moments ago. And now it's basically empty, leaving the question, what happens next? When will it fill up again? And where do Republicans go from here? Jim Jordan is the man of the hour, but the question is, will he be the man for Republicans going forward as the next speaker? You can see on the first vote total, he got 200 votes among Republicans. Here's the issue. There were 20 other Republicans who voted either for Kevin McCarthy, Steve Scalise, or someone else saying, essentially on that first ballot, they could not stand behind Jim Jordan. So right now, there is a recess in the halls of Capitol on day 14 of there being no speaker in the House, as there are major issues here in Washington and, as we know, around the world that need to be dealt with. And right now, the question is, among many of them, how does the House deal with them and who will lead the House through it? Let's bring back in Mike Vaquera, the bureau chief here in Washington for NewsNation, Niall Stanage with our friends over at The Hill, and Ian Swanson, the managing editor of The Hill. Ian, Vic, you've been hanging with us. Niall, welcome to the show. You've been watching as we have. So let's start with you. What happens next, Niall? I'm not sure we're any closer to ending this thing than we were 2 weeks ago.
No, and I'm not sure anybody knows exactly what happens next. My working assumption is that Jim Jordan will put the screws to these people who have voted for other candidates, see if he can move the vote a little bit. He doesn't have to necessarily win on the next vote, but I think what he wants to do is show momentum toward that magic number 217. Now, I would say, as a cautionary note, the number voting for other people is higher than Jordan allies anticipated. Chip Roy, for example, the congressman from Texas, was estimating earlier on today 8 to 10 defectors. So the fact that it's significantly higher than that will, I think, worry Jim Jordan's allies quite a lot.
Right. And so if he needs to get to 217 and there's 20 others, Vic and Ian, how does he essentially needs, correct me if I'm wrong, 17 of those 20 to come to his side, right, Vic?
Well, that's right. He got exactly 200 votes. He needs 217, assuming that all the sitting members of the House, 433 of them, there was one that did not vote today, show up and actually vote. I mean, let's talk about what's at stake here as we look at the House of Representatives in an empty chamber. And as I think, as you aptly point out, Blake, very symbolic of exactly what's happening in the United States Congress now. And that's nothing. The House remains in limbo. The House remains paralyzed while Republicans, in the face, again, of a solid wall of Democratic opposition, 212 votes for Hakeem Jeffries. There are 212 Democrats in the House, not one breaking ranks. But we do expect the Biden administration to come to Congress with a request for billions of dollars, $2–3 billion. It's all speculation at this point, for Israel in their time of crisis. There's also the question of Ukraine. Obviously, a lot of opposition on the Republican side, including from Jim Jordan, but money request coming from the Biden administration soon. Not to mention all of the day-to-day business that goes on in Congress now at a standstill. We had some protest votes. I think it's fair to say that. But whittling 17 down to 4, and 4 is the maximum number that Republicans can lose, Jim Jordan can lose, and still become Speaker in the face of that solid wall of Democratic opposition, that's going to be a tall order. And one more time, let's say it, all politics is local. A lot of those voting against Jim Jordan for Steve Scalise, Kevin McCarthy, or what other random members of Congress attracted votes, and there were a few unusual ones today. Many of these people are from swing districts, those districts that you've been talking about over the course of the afternoon, Blake, that did go to Joe Biden. These members, very knife's edge, narrow voting majorities in their district, won by very narrow majorities, very concerned about the perception of a Donald Trump ally, and Jim Jordan endorsed very publicly twice in the last 24 hours by Donald Trump. Very wary of having a Donald Trump ally in the speaker's chair.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.